pen lay still on the desk yet. The notebook pages turned black with lyrics Marshall had never written. Winter pressed Detroit flat against the glass. The night so still, it felt like the city had been put on mute. Inside, the kitchen clock clicked like a metronome that had forgotten its song. Marshall drifted through the dark rooms with that old restlessness twitching in his ribs, too wired to sleep, too empty to eat, too proud to admit either. He ended up at the window desk. The lamp there didn't light the house so much as carve a circle out of the dark and defend it. In that small globe of warmth slept a battered black notebook dog-eared, coffee-stained edges fluffed from being opened when it shouldn't and closed when it couldn't. Beside it, a cheap ballpoint he kept around out of habit and resentment. He sat. The chair knew his weight the way a stage does. He didn't open the book. He set his fingers on the cover and told himself the oldest lie he knew. 2 bars and I'm out. The pen rolled. Not the lazy slide of a tilted table, not gravity taking a chance. It rolled like it had heard its cue and wanted center stage. It stopped in the exact middle of the notebook. Marshall stared. Even his breath forgot what it was doing. Cute, he said, because jokes were armor. He flipped the cover. Blank page, soft cream, fine tooth. The paper lifted a fraction under his palm, as if something beneath it had exhaled. It was warm, not lamp warm, skin-warm. The pen stood and wrote no hand, no fingers. The ballpoint kissed the page and moved in a tight, aggressive scrawl. His scrawl. Sharp angles, impatient downstrokes, a lifetime of hurry pouring out without him. The first line wasn't a lyric. It was a time, 3:27 a.m. Don't answer the first call. The oven clock said 3:11. His phone buzzed calendar alert he never made. 3:27 event. He flipped the phone face down like that could shut a mouth. The pen kept going. 3:31 a.m. Same. Number, 2 rings. Answer on the 3rd. Gooseflesh raced both arms. He'd lived by superstition, once knocks and counts, and little bargains with nothing. This felt different. Not luck, choreography. Who are you? He asked, the empty air. What he meant was, what part of me is this? The pen answered with a sentence that wasn't a verse and sounded like one anyway. I don't write the future, I remember it early. He dragged his thumb across the line to smear it. The ink blurred on, then, with a slow, plastic-sweet smell, corrected itself. His words snapped back into perfect shape without him. He flipped back 3 pages to prove the book belonged to him. Old lists, half hooks, angry titles, phone numbers he'd never call again. He flipped forward. The new page thrummed under the light like a vain Trésor de Genevieve. Amy. Don't look at the window. He looked at the window. Outside, the yard was a sheet of black ice under the weak porch light. Snow piled fat on the garage roof. The motion sensor stuttered. Once, without a cause to blame. He could have said wind. He could have said raccoon. He said nothing. Back to the page, porch, 2 envelopes. Take the second. Don't read yet. Freezer, top shelf. Behind the peas. He almost laughed. He almost cursed. A different line elbowed past both. The beat you're scared of is the only one that fits you. He reached to snatch the pen reflex finally. Catching up with fear, but the notebook pushed back. Not hard. Just enough to tell him touch had rules now. He let go. The pen resumed, brisk and businesslike. 3:20 a.m. Bulb pops. Step back. He stepped back before the thought finished forming. The kitchen bulb snapped with a polite pop and spit 2 bright flecks of glass exactly where his face had been. He didn't jump. His body had already used the jump up inside. Dim. Now, the lamp's circle looked deeper, the page brighter. The house seemed to discover new creaks. The heater clicked twice and reconsidered its job. Outside, the wind changed its mind without telling anyone why. "Why me?" he said. It sounded like a child asking a door for mercy. The pen slowed, handwriting shifting into a careful, teacherly script. Because the page listens. Because once you put a truth in a rhyme, it forgets how to be a secret. His phone vibrated. 3:26. A hum rose through him that had nothing to do with electricity. He could feel the call coming like thunder you hear in your bones before the sky. Agrees. Don't answer the first, he repeated aloud to make it real enough to disobey. 3:27. The phone rang. Unknown number. Area code he knew too well. He let one ring walk its circle. Then another. He stared at decline and did nothing. The call died on its own. The pen breathed with him. He hated that he noticed. 3:31. The same number. One ring, 2. On the third, he answered, static not, the hiss of bad service, but the scratch of teeth on glass. Then his own voice came through. Not an impression. Him. Older by years he didn't want. Sandpapered raw. Don't read the first page. The voice said, like a nurse telling a patient where the needle will find skin. Skip it. What are you? He whispered. I'm what comes after the chorus. The line cut dead, as if someone had pulled the plug from a living wall. The pen didn't wait for grief. It wrote, tear out the first page. Burn it in the sink. Don't read. Don't watch. Listen. He slid a fingertip under the paper. It clung like skin and then sighed free. At the stove, blue flame licked the air. He held the page near enough to feel heat and far enough to call it caution. The paper curled, took fire lazily, then hungrily. He stared at the backsplash tile and listened. The ink burned with a sickly sweetness that made his throat taste like pennies. He turned the flame off. Ash slumped like a promise kept wrong. Back at the desk, the pen had become a bureaucrat. Rule 1, if it writes a time, keep it. Rule 2, if it writes a name, do not say it. Rule 3, if it writes a place, don't arrive on time. Rule 4, if it writes a choice, pick the one that hurts. Rule 5, never write back. He grabbed the pen anyway and carved 2 letters into the margin. Ugly and loud. W.H. Wyther. Page warmed beneath his knuckles. Cooled. Warmed again. He let go. The answer came neat as a signature. Because if you write, I remember later. And if I remember later, you don't get to. He sat back. The chair counted his years with its joints. The house held still. The pen turned back to orders. Porch. Now. Second envelope. Don't read. Freezer. Top shelf. Behind the peas, he put on a hoodie, because men who argue with instructions in their own handwriting are allowed small dignities. He opened the door. Winter put its fingers down his neck. 2 blank envelopes sat on the step, clean as bones. He took the second. It was heavier in the way decisions are. He shut and locked the door against nothing he could name and the nothing named him in the freezer. The top shelf was a museum of postponed intentions. Smoothie, fruit, defeated ice. Packs, peas that had been peas too long. He slid the envelope behind the bag. The cold ate the paper's outline. Back at the desk, the pen wrote, good. When it thaws, you'll know. Don't ask when. Don't ask why. He wanted to ask anyway. Questions. Are the last free country. He put both palms on the desk to hold himself in place. The pen softened its hand. You started this when you put a truth where a rhyme should have gone. I was 14, he said to the room. You were older, the page wrote. The phone buzzed. He didn't look. He was busy being told. 4:02 a.m. Don't answer the door. He will knock 4 times. He is 12 and he knows your name. He is not him. His throat closed on a dozen names at once. He waited because waiting is obedience, dressed as wisdom, at 4:02. 4 knuckles tapped the wood. Patient, memorized, small. Breath waited on the other side like a pet in a crate. He didn't move. The silence after felt like a body pressed to the door, making a decision. Then it left. He hated the part of himself that had been ready to love whatever stood there. Good. The pen wrote, Tell me something I want to hear. The stage tomorrow doesn't fall. Tell me something true. The stage tomorrow falls for someone else. He let the chair creak because something in the room needed to make a human sound. He looked at his hands until they believed him. For 19 a.m. Sleep on the couch, not the bed. Bed is history. Couch is a bridge. He pictured the sagging cushions spanning a canyon of what-ifs. He closed the notebook. The pen tapped twice like a teacher, and he opened it again without meaning to. Last line for tonight, the page wrote. You think you make the song, you do, but the song also makes you. If you forget that, I come back. If you remember, I still do. The difference is who speaks first. The pen went still. The page cooled. The house remembered itself. He stood too fast and let his knees complain. 3 steps toward the living room, and he turned back like a man who'd left a stove on. The notebook was closed. He hadn't touched it, for new words had been written on the cover where a title would go. In his handwriting, with a pen he hadn't held, the ink that writes itself. From the freezer came the soft crack of paper, learning. The shape of ice, he killed the lamp. The dark poured back in. He lay on the couch because bridges only hold you if you step on them. He didn't dream. It felt like the page had eaten the dreams for him. Somewhere between almost sleep and the hour the city remembers it's a city. His phone ticked once with a text he didn't check. In the kitchen, the notebook turned a page. By itself, and out in the winter stillness, a boy who was not a boy practiced for gentle knocks against his palm and promised himself he'd get the rhythm right tomorrow. The couch didn't give him rest. It gave him half dreams, edges of sounds no shifting on the roof, the hum of wires in the walls, the weight of silence pressing down like a blanket. Every time he drifted, he felt the notebook breathing in. The kitchen, every time his eyes opened, the house looked exactly the same, but wrong in ways that couldn't be named. When dawn finally dragged itself across Detroit, gray and heavy, Marshall pushed off the couch. His neck ached, his mouth was dry, and the notebook still waited on the desk, exactly as he had left it, closed. Too polite, too patient. He tried ignoring it, made coffee, checked headlines, shuffled through emails. Normal routines felt like cardboard props. Every sound, the drip of the coffee maker, the scrape of the spoon, code like they were rehearsed for someone else's stage. The notebook clicked open. He hadn't touched it. Pages fluttered as if flipped by wind that didn't exist. Then it stopped on a fresh sheet, and the pen stood upright, balanced on its tip like a performer bowing before beginning. Marshall set his mug down. Go on then, the pen wrote. Rule 6, don't ask who's knocking until you're ready to let him in. Rule 7. If the page waits, you don't. Rule 8. Never read aloud what you don't understand. The last one stung. He'd built a career shouting words he half understood at the time, letting the beat translate them for him. The pen didn't stop. 5:13 p.m. Answer the door. Take what he gives you. Don't say thank you. Marshall checked the clock. Hours away. His skin tightened at the thought of waiting for time to catch him. He slammed the notebook shut. It opened itself again. This time the letters crawled slower, thicker. If you close me, I keep writing. The only difference is you don't see it until too late. His pulse jumped. He shoved back from the desk, pacing the kitchen, muttering curses under his breath. He wanted to throw the notebook into the trash, the fire, the snow, but even imagining it gave him the feeling of cutting a mic mid-showing, natural, unfinished, dangerous. His phone buzzed. A new text. The number was blocked. The message, check the freezer. He froze. The envelope, he yanked open the freezer door. Frost smoked around his hands. The envelope lay behind the peas, sealed but swollen slightly, as if the paper had absorbed the cold into its bones. He pulled it out. It felt heavier than last night. The notebook wrote without waiting, "Don't open yet. If you open now, it won't be yours." Marshall swore under his breath. He shoved the envelope into his hoodie pocket like it might burn. The pen scribbled another line, sharper. "Time makes the choice for you. Wait." He sat, knuckles pressed against his temples. "This is insane." The pen wrote back instantly. So was writing your life down and expecting it not to notice. He laughed once, ugly and dry. He thought about the first rhymes he'd ever carved into notebooks, the way words had felt like spells. Maybe he'd been feeding something since then. Maybe it had just learned how to write back. The rest of the day dragged like it had teeth. Every sound in the house was louder than it should have been. He jumped when the mail slot clanged, flinched when a neighbor's car door slammed. Each minute felt like a countdown. At 5:13 on the dot, the knock came. Not the child's rhythm. From before, this one was deliberate. 3 heavy raps, then silence. Marshall stood frozen in the kitchen doorway. The notebook waited, open, its ink drying into command. His phone buzzed once more. Same blocked number. Open it now. He walked to the door, every step like wading into water. He unlatched it and pulled. A man stood there. Not a child. Not a stranger. Not exactly. Hood up, hands in pockets, face in. Shadow. He didn't speak. He only extended his hand in another envelope. Marshall's throat clicked. He took it. The man's hand was warm, too warm for winter. Before Marshall could speak, the man stepped back into the snow and was gone, swallowed by the grey light. Marshall stared down at his hands. 2 envelopes, now one frozen, one warm dot behind him. The pen wrote, "One saves, one costs. Don't confuse them." Marshall sat at the kitchen table, both envelopes in front of him like rival witnesses. One still cold from the freezer, edges stiff with frost. The other warm, the paper almost damp, as if it had a pulse. He stared at them, arms crossed tight, every nerve waiting for the notebook to move. It didn't. The silence was worse than the writing. At least when the pen scratched, he could pretend he wasn't making choices. Now the choice sat heavy in his hands, and the page offered nothing. He picked up the frozen one first. The paper crackled, brittle, resisting. He turned it over. No writing, no seal blank. He held it to the light. The fibers inside were too dense to see through. It was just a rectangle of refusal. The warm one whispered, Not literally, but the heat pulsed against his fingers in time with his heartbeat. He set it down quick, as though it might leave a mark. His phone buzzed. One new text. Same blocked number. If you read the cold, you live someone else's memory. If you read the warm, you live your own future. Choose. His throat tightened. He typed back without thinking. And if I read neither? The reply came instantly. Then they both read you. The notebook finally opened with a slap, pages flipping until they stopped near the back. The pen rose and scrawled with sharp urgency. Rule 9, open one before midnight. If both remain sealed, the voice that knocks will not leave. Marshall slammed his fist onto the table. You're not running me, he growled. I've been running from ghosts my whole life. You don't get to be one more. The notebook ignored him, scribbling across the page so fast the words nearly tore the paper. Every rhyme you've ever written was a contract. Every crowd you ever held was a witness. You fed me the lines. Now I'm feeding you back. He shoved his chair back so hard it screeched. The sound seemed to hang in the air too long, like the room didn't know how to let go of it. Midnight was hours away, but the weight of the envelopes already bent the hours into something sharp. He paced, hoodie damp with sweat, coffee untouched. He caught his reflection in the microwave door pail, eyes bloodshot. For a moment, the reflection wasn't him. For a moment, the reflection smiled. The knock came early, not at midnight, not even close footsteps. Slow, patient, the same rhythm from the night before. The child's knock, Marshall froze. His phone buzzed again. Don't confuse them. He looked back at the table. Both envelopes lay perfectly still, but the warm one had left a faint circle of moisture on the wood. Like sweat, he moved to the door. Fists clenched. He pressed his ear against the wood. Nothing, no breath, no shuffle, just presence. He whispered to himself, if I open, it's over. The notebook answered across the room, the pen scratching loud enough to hear. If you don't, it's worse. Marshall spun. The envelopes had moved. The frozen one was now half on top of the warm, like it had climbed there, like it wanted to smother it. His hands shook as he grabbed them both. He held one in each hand, frost biting his left, heat stinging his right. His phone lit again, final message of the night. The page doesn't lie. The page doesn't care. Midnight decides if you don't. The knock came again, harder this time. Rattling the door on its hinges, Marshall clutched both envelopes to his chest, staring at the notebook's last words of the page as the pen stopped cold. Tomorrow, the song writes you. Midnight crawled in like a trespasser. The digital clock on the stove blinked 12 o'clock, casting its pale glow over the kitchen. Marshall sat at the table, both envelopes in front of him, the notebook spread open like a judge waiting for testimony. The cold envelope had begun to sweat. Droplets trickled down its frosted edge, pooling on the wood. The warm one pulsed faintly in the lamplight, like it carried a heartbeat not his own. Marshall rubbed his temples. One saves, one costs, he muttered. But which is which? The notebook moved. The pen scrawled across the page in jagged, hurried strokes. If you open the wrong one, you'll wrap words that aren't yours. If you open the right one, you'll wrap words that kill you anyway. His stomach twisted. That's not a choice. It never was, the page replied. The knock returned. 4 times, heavy, patient. The child's rhythm, grown louder, like knuckles. Made of stone, Marshall shot to his feet, hands trembling. You want me to play? fine. He snatched the warm envelope, tore the flap open. Inside, a single sheet of paper, his handwriting etched in thick black ink. A verse, 4 bars. Bars. He had never written, but they were his style, his scars, his rhythm. He read silently, lips moving. The words burned in his throat even without sound, as though they had been waiting there all along. The pen scraped violently in the notebook. Don't read aloud. Don't too late. The verse poured from him like bile. He spoke it, line by line, his voice cracking with a strange, ragged rhythm. The air thickened. The walls shivered. Every light in the house flickered. From outside the door came a child's voice, faint and echoing. His voice, it repeated the bars back, to him perfect, unbroken, as if mocking. The notebook spasmed open, pages flapping like wings. Ink splattered. Across the wood, writing on every line at once. He couldn't keep up, couldn't even read it all. But one phrase bled through the chaos. Now he knows your mouth. Now he has your breath. Marshall stumbled back, clutching the page, heart slamming. He dropped it. The sheet didn't fall like paper writ, landed with weight, like a brick. Cracking the floor tile, the cold envelope burst open by itself. A cloud of frost spilled into the room, curling up the walls. Another page slid free, frozen stiff, letters carved in ice. It showed the same verse, but inverted lines rearranged, words reversed. The page smoked as if breathing. The door thundered with another knock, 4 times harder. Wood splintered, Marshall's phone lit, screen cracked, message burning across. It rapped the verse forward, he enters. Rap it backward, he stays. But either way, he listens. His throat tightened. Sweat froze against his skin. He looked from one page to the other, heat and frost battling across the table. The notebook shrieking with ink. "Which one of you is me?" he rasped. The house seemed to answer with silence, heavier than any beat. The final knock shattered the lock. The door began to swing open. Marshall gripped the mic still in his hand. He didn't remember picking it up. His mouth opened, and the choice he made filled the house. The door crashed open, wood splintering into the kitchen. Cold and heat rushed in together, colliding like 2 storms in the same sky. The envelopes disintegrated, one in shards of ice, the other in a smear of ash, leaving only the notebook. Thrashing on the table, pages turning so fast they blurred into a single scream of paper. Marshall stood frozen, mic clenched, breath raw. He expected a figure to step through the broken door. Instead, the hallway beyond was empty. No child, no man, no shadow. Just dark air that smelled faintly of dust and iron dot. Then he heard it, his voice, not from the hall, from everywhere. The walls hummed. The floor trembled. His own cadence wrapped around him, verses he had never written but somehow recognized. The rhythm was jagged, almost broken, but perfect in its intent. The notebook snapped shut with a thunderclap. On its cover, 4 fresh words burned black. He has the verse. Marshall staggered backward, chest heaving, sweat freezing against his skin. "No," he rasped. "It's mine, my voice, my words." The air disagreed. The verses grew louder, splitting into layers. Harmonies of his own tone stacked into a cathedral of sound. His life unraveled line by line. Every secret, every scar, every silence turned into bars and spit back at him. He pressed the mic to his lips. His voice cracked, but he forced it out anyway, his verse, his rhythm. He fought noise with noise, breath with breath. For a second, the house bent to him, the rhythm folding around his beat. Then the lights exploded. Darkness drowned the room in the black. He felt hot breath at his ear. His own voice whispered, low and final: encore. The floor gave way. He fell, swallowed not by fire, not by frost, but by ink pages swallowing him whole, dragging him into the book that had always been waiting. On the table, the notebook lay still. Its cover gleamed faintly in the dark. Across it, a new title shimmered in fresh handwriting: The Song That Writes You. And in the shattered doorway, silence stood patient, ready to knock again.